When I arrived, already there was a big police presence and the cordons had been put in place before I arrived. We didn't actually have to do too much to create a cordon because where this vehicle was, it was down the bottom end of the lane and it was fairly isolated. So there was not a lot of chance of other people disturbing the scene or coming across it by accident. So we didn't actually have to make much of an effort to keep the public at bay. Probably one of the problems is once the word had got out, the press descended on the scene in great numbers, and it was essential that none of them were allowed access to this scene, so we had to put measures in place to keep the press at the distance.
The first time I heard about them getting murdered, right, I can clearly remember it. Just like anyone else, I remember walking down Worsted Road in Ipswich where I lived, buying a copy of the Sun newspaper like I did every day. And there, on the front pages and in the middle and stuff, was about them, the day after it happened. That's the first time, just like any member of the public, that I knew about their deaths.
The weather played a vital part because as the morning developed and the sun started to come up, the snow started to melt, the frost started to disappear, and together with that, footprints and any other evidence that had been left on the ground were disappearing before our eyes. As I described earlier, the scene was very, very muddy, very, very restricted, and these three people were still contained within the vehicle. It was decided in consultation with the pathologist and the Scenes of Crime department that in order to obtain the best evidence that we could, this vehicle needed to be removed from the scene to a place of safety and warmth and comfort where the experts could obtain the best evidence available rather than at the scene. So a decision was made to take the vehicle from the scene intact to a police location for further examination. In any murder inquiry, it's essential that you identify the deceased, and it became even more so in this case. However, it was apparent from the first instance that nobody was coming forward to claim these three people, which obviously was strange. As the senior investigating officer, I put appeals out to the press and to the general public. Did they know of anyone who was missing? And could they come forward and help us with our inquiries? But it didn't produce a result, which, in my opinion, at the time, I thought, what's going on here? Anyhow, it was either the next day or the day after that somebody did come forward and said, my husband or my common-law husband has not come home. I'm wondering if he is one of these three people.
The police had obviously gone to the families and said, your husband, your boyfriend, your son is one of the people in the Range Rover. Do you know where they were yesterday? Do you know where they're meeting?
The person who put the telephone call in was the common-law wife of the driver of the Range Rover, Craig Rolfe.
He met Donna in the Powerhouse pub. I think she was about 18. When he met her, she had a little boy, got involved with her. Donna was a lovely lass, never been in trouble with the police before. Quiet, slim, long hair. They got a flat at Langdon, then they got a house. But Donna was in the spider's web, she couldn't get out of. She was scared of Craig. So if Craig told her to do something, she'd do it. Donna's a lovely lass. Craig and Tony would never tell anyone anything. After the few deals went down and busted, they wouldn't tell anyone anything. Everything was secret. If there was something going down between those two and no one else knew.
I asked Donna why she thought it was her common-law husband and why was he down this lane and what were his movements that day as far as she could understand. She was fairly sketchy and you have to understand that she's thinking that her husband has been killed. So she's not in the best state that she could have been. But what she did say was she thought, although she wasn't certain, she thought that he was going to meet somebody called Mickey the pilot. Now, that meant nothing to me at the time, but of course was a crucial bit of information that we had to work on. Once we'd received this snippet of information from Donna, it clearly gave us one of our first leads in this inquiry. And it just so happened that having spoken to Donna, my next move was to go back to police headquarters for something else that I was dealing with. And me and my deputy went into the canteen for a cup of tea and a piece of cake. And across the table from us was one of our intelligence officers from the Force Intelligence Bureau. And I just casually said to him, "Do you know anyone called Mickey the Pilot, or have we any details of Mickey the Pilot in our system?" And he said, "Yes, Gov, I think I have." Well, of course, you can imagine how I felt. This really was important information. And I asked him, I didn't want him to know why I was interested in this, because I wanted that information to be kept fairly close to our chest. So I said to him, well, could you let me have the file in the next couple of days? I didn't mean the next couple of days, of course. I wanted it in the next couple of minutes. And he said, "Okay, I'll go and get it." And within 2 minutes, he had produced for me a file on Mickey the Pilot, which gave me the full details of Michael Steele, who was a person who lived in North Essex. He had, according to this intelligence file, previous involvement in drugs offences. He wasn't known to me, but it was a start and was something that we could focus on.
So Dibley, he had his man. Within a week, he had his man. Nothing to do with Darren Nichols grassing him up, and that's rubbish. The police had him straight away. Everyone goes, well, why didn't they just go and arrest him? Well, having his name isn't evidence. Even though he knew who he was, he had to build the case around him. So he looked at, the various people involved. There was another incident a little bit later on as Dibley's building his own case. Darren Nichols had been in a pub and he had a suspicion that this guy had had a fling with his partner, and he'd ended up having a fight in the pub with this guy, and he was outside, and this policeman, DC Bird, had been approaching Nichols in the weeks up to this, going, "Oh no, you're a drug dealer, why don't you come on board, be my informant?" And he's going, "I ain't no drug dealer, I ain't involved in nothing," do you know what I mean? But on the night of this fight, Bird come outside and was talking to Nichols on the car park. And the guy Nichols had a fight with looked through the window and saw them and was convinced they were talking about him. So the next day, he went to Essex HQ and asked to speak to a senior policeman. And he said, "A well-known local drug dealer has got an unhealthy relationship with one of your officers, and I think they're trying to set me up." So they said, "Who is he?" And they said, "DC Bird." "Who's the other guy?" "Darren Nichols." Well, Darren Nichols was in the system as an associate of Steele's and potentially involved in this triple murder. And as soon as that got back to, because it was flagged, as soon as that got back to Dibley, they started monitoring Bird's phone calls and recording all the calls. So they had all the evidence of Nichols smuggling and all his dodgy business long before they arrested him.